Welcome everyone. We are here today with the wonderful Terry Ryder from hotspotting.com.au. Hotspotting is one of the leaders in research in Australia on property, and Terry has been doing this for a very long time and involved in property in his early days as a journalist. And we've been working together for a long time, haven't we, Terry?
We have. It's kind of scary when you look back over how many years. I've been doing this as a specialist in researching and writing about real estate for 4 decades now, over 4 decades.
Wow. We want to hear about your new book. So tell us all about why property values rise. Show us the book, Terry.
Okay. So here we go. Just been published by Major Street. They specialize in business and real estate books. And in the past, I've published some books with the same publisher, Leslie Williams. But this is the first one for 20 years, because 20 years ago, I started the hotspotting business, and I've been ridiculously busy with that for the last 20 years. And I've just decided I want to get back into it because I love the process of writing books.
Oh, great. Tell us about that. What do you love about it?
To me, it's not work. It's just pure pleasure. I just love writing. And when you get in the zone, when you're writing a book and it's all just flowing out and you know that the work that you're doing is good, it's a real buzz. And I like research. I'm really interested. And I propose to write a lot more books going forward. And it's not just going to be on real estate because there's a lot of other topics I want to get my teeth into. But this one's obviously real estate, and the next one will probably be real estate as well. But then I'll branch out. But this one I thought needed to be written because doing what I do, and I'm sure you're aware of this too, there's a lot of people out there in Australia who are very interested in property investment. Like millions of Australians own investment property, but most of them only own one or maybe two. I think they all start out with the ambition of building a portfolio, becoming financially independent, retiring early, but very few actually achieve it. And I think there's a reason for it. I think people don't go about it the right way. They don't understand enough about how real estate works and what's important to do to succeed with it. And in particular, they don't know enough about where to buy, because that's the secret sauce, you know.
Yep.
75% of the heavy lifting on capital growth comes from the location in which you buy. You can buy beautiful property that looks like $1 million, but if it's in the wrong location, you're not going to get the capital growth you want.
And all too often we find people will buy in an area that they already know because they think, oh, well, my house is here. This has been a good area. I should buy here. But what would you say to that, Terry?
Well, I've got a chapter called the 12 rookie errors that people make, and that's one of them.
Okay.
Buying in your backyard because you think I know that market, so it makes sense. So that's one of the 12 rookie errors that I talk about. But it's probably not the biggest one. There are so many, but investors tend to be herd animals. They're not well researched. And I think probably the biggest of all the 12 mistakes that people commonly make is an unwillingness to invest in advice and information. A lot of people willing to get a loan and spend 500 or 700,000 on a property, but they won't spend anything on getting good advice and good information to make sure they actually buy well. And that's probably the biggest single mistake.
And they often think they will know. Like, who are they asking, or what they've read in the paper, or it's pretty scary, actually.
Yeah, it really is. And I have some case studies in the book of people who have done totally the wrong thing and ended up with a bit of a disaster, like buying multiple properties in one location, which happens to be like a resources related location. And when that all goes belly up in values, it's the only instance in the history of Australia where property values absolutely crash. There are periods normally when a market might have a period of slight decline with property values before they start to rise again. But a complete collapse of property values never happens in Australian real estate, except for resources towns. That has happened. And people who have bought multiple properties in those sorts of places have ended up with disasters. And it's a product of just not knowing enough and not getting the right advice.
Yeah. And we've had clients buying from supposed professionals who were selling them properties. And that often has been like they're selling whatever property out in a boondock town and they go, oh, this is where it'll boom because I'm selling you this property, which they've built or whatever. And that often has been a
And
problem
there's
for
another big
people.
risk factor out there now, Louise. It's quite a recent one, but there are hordes and hordes of people who are calling themselves buyer's agents, and they really don't know anything. They've got nothing to offer, but they're charging $15,000 or $20,000 fees to do a bit of online searching and tell people buy this property. And there are also some of the larger ones who are just going into markets and buying everything that's for sale just buying anything and everything, paying whatever to beat the competition, to corner the market and earn lots of fees for themselves, but it's not necessarily good for their clients. I mean, it's happening in Darwin right now, which is having a feeding frenzy, and it's been largely driven by some of these larger, not so scrupulous buyers agencies, and it's a bit of a danger point for investors. They need to be very careful about, not just very important to get advice, but you've got to be careful who you get it from.
Exactly. Now, we were talking about talking up the Victorian market, which has been in the doldrums for a very long time.
Yeah. Look, honestly, its time has come. Melbourne and Victoria have been underachieving.
We know.
While Perth and Adelaide and regional Queensland have been absolutely pumping for the last, say, 3 years, regional Victoria and Melbourne have been in the doldrums, and partly because Victoria's got the worst state government in the land. It still does, but the time for Melbourne, people have looked at Melbourne and say, well, it's now cheaper than Brisbane. It's on a par with Adelaide. That shouldn't be. I mean, logically.
That's insane.
It is insane, but it means there's great value for money buying in Melbourne right now. And people are aware that you pay the highest property taxes in Australia in Victoria, but people are aware of that. But there's such great opportunities now to buy well. So we're starting to see in the sales volumes figures that Melbourne's moving really strongly, and same in regional Victoria places like Bendigo, Ballarat, Geelong, Shepparton, the Latrobe Valley. There's affordability there. The rental yields aren't as good as you could get, say, in regional Queensland, but the value for money buying is there, and people who are buying there now are going to get some good capital growth next year. I think Melbourne and Victoria will probably lead Australia alongside, but Darwin's still going to be pumping. But they're going to be right up there with the leaders next year, whereas in the last couple of years, they've been right down the bottom of the pecking order.
Well, I know you've often said the higher end areas like Brighton, where I am, you're fairly disparaging about my capital growth prospects. And I'm just wondering if you think there's any hope for me now.
I'm not suggesting there won't be capital growth there, but what we have found again and again, the last year, the last 5 years, it's the more affordable areas that show the best percentage uplift. Affordability rules because it's harder and harder to find affordability for people and for investors, for young home buyers. And there's been extraordinary capital growth in the cheaper areas of the capital cities, but in particular in regional areas, because we still have this big movement of population from Sydney and Melbourne to the regions. Melbourne still has great population growth because of overseas migrants, but it's losing population to internal migration, but they don't move very far, and they're moving to Bendigo, Ballarat, Geelong, and Mitchell Shire, those towns like Seymour and Wayland, not far north of Melbourne. So people are moving from the city because technology means they can work remotely. That's the main thing, but they're not moving very far because they like to stay in touch with their capital city.
So any suburban areas that you would suggest might have good growth in the next little while that you've seen in Melbourne?
Yeah, there's some standouts. One that stands out is Frankston, which is being regarded as a little bit down market. But if you know Frankston, it's down by the bay. It's a really great lifestyle there and really good transport links back to Melbourne. But there's an X factor there. And this is something that we look for as infrastructure investment because it can supercharge property markets. There's $1 billion hospital being built down there. So there's, say, 3,000 jobs in building it, and there's maybe 5,000 jobs in running it when it's finished. So people want to live close to where they're working. So we're going to have more and more people buying down in that Frankston area. And it's already happening. We're seeing anecdotally extraordinary auction results where there's an expectation that this house is going to sell for $750 and it ends up selling for $850. And it's not because the agents are underquoting, it's because the market.
I'm not sure about that.
Well, no, but I mean, I know that's a factor in the market, but the reason why properties in that area are selling for a lot more than expected is because there's so many people competing for it, and at auction the bidding just keeps on going, and it gets to a point where the vendors are just absolutely delighted. They never imagined it would sell for that much money, and we're seeing that happening. There was a couple of instances that some of the people we talked to told us about down around sort of Point Cook as well. So this is starting to happen. It's a sign that the Melbourne market is really starting to come strong. We're starting to see results like that where the expectations of vendors are being greatly exceeded.
Well, it's good for those who are downsizing or retiring, because there's a fair few of that we see. Even around here, there have been a lot of people competing very heavily at smaller apartments and things because that first home buyer grant.
That's a good point, because one of the things I do feature in the book is one of my catchcries is the only constant in real estate is change. And over 40 years of doing this, I've seen things changing all the time. 10 years ago, the big growth was happening in Sydney and Melbourne. The last 5 years, it's been the smaller capital cities and the regional areas. But the big paradigm shift we're now observing in the last, say, 2 years, and it's gathering pace, is more and more people are opting for attached dwellings, not just for affordability reasons, but like in Melbourne, as you're aware, there's this big crime issue, and there's home invasions and burglaries, and people feel safer in an apartment with security features. There's people downsizing. You can achieve a good location at an affordable price more readily with an apartment than a house on land. So there's lots of reasons why buyer demand for attached dwellings is rising. So it's really competing strongly on capital growth now. We're actually seeing units outperform houses on capital growth in the last 2 years.
In the major cities, is that where?
Yeah, in all the major cities and some of the regional markets. Melbourne's a
Wow.
great case in point. I mean, you can buy solid, like for a young person, I had a mentoring client. He's a young guy starting out. He bought a 2-bedroom apartment in Kensington, which is right close to the city. It's next to the
Yep.
Hotspotting precinct and the university. It's a great location. There's trams going past his door, and he bought 450,000. To be able to buy that close to the action, he's absolutely delighted. And I'm sure he's going to get really good capital growth there, because there's more and more people wanting to make that kind of purchase.
Great. What about Sydney? Any suburbs that are standouts in Sydney at the moment?
Yeah, again, in Sydney, more than half of all sales are units now. 52% of sales are attached dwellings. Places like Canterbury, Bankstown, good location, houses typically say 1.3, 1.5 million throughout those suburbs, but you can get into the unit market for less than 500,000.
Wow.
And some of them are, I have to say, down market areas, but the down market areas have been really performing on capital growth. The infrastructure is good. It offers what people need, the train station, the shops, the schools, and they can afford it. So they don't care if the real estate snob says this is down market, stigmatized. Why would you want to buy there? They don't care. And the buyer demand is pushing up values. So that's an example of a market that's pumping in Sydney at the moment.
Yeah, good. Well, I agree. I've had lots of people over the years tell us, even if they thought they knew areas, and they go, oh, I would never buy in Geelong because, whatever. And I lived there. And I go, well, you might be wrong, because other people want to buy there. This is the thing. It's amazing.
The best capital growth in the last 5 years in capital city Australia have been the northern suburbs of Adelaide, the Elizabeth suburbs, and there's nowhere in capital city Australia more down market, more stigmatized, more socio-economic problems.
And after the cars all closed, that area was renowned for manufacturing cars, and then that all went, and then it boomed. Like, what the hell happened then?
Because another business moved in and moved into those car premises, and there was no sort of net loss of jobs. There's lots of jobs up in the north of Adelaide, but those suburbs where you could buy for 300,000 5 years ago, they're now all 600,000. The capital growth rate's been 20 to 25% per year for the past 5 years. It's extraordinary.
And there was many people who'd hung there for 10 years and had nothing, no growth, and then suddenly, boom. Yeah. It just goes to show it's time in the market too, isn't it? Either pick the right area or hang on.
But the point I'm making, and the point I make in this book, is that the great capital growth often happens in the areas you would not expect, and which traditionally have not happened. But the era we're in is affordability rules.
Yeah, great.
But understand that real estate is very local in nature. We don't have an Australian property market. It's all local, and it's all about the local economy. What's happening? Jobs being created, is the infrastructure spending happening. That's why the Frankston area is pumping, because they're building a big $1 billion hospital down there, and that kind of thing has a huge impact.
I remember when they started playing opera through the loudspeakers at the train station to stop the druggies hanging around there, and put in blue lights so they couldn't see where the veins were. So things have improved a lot down there. Yeah. But it worked. Obviously, their strategy worked. They had a strategy which was positive, and they actually did something about it, which is really great. I wish the city of Melbourne would do the same, like make something a bit more, have a focus on making it more beautiful and creative, which they seem to have lost their way.
And safer.
Yes, much safer. We need it here. There are good people here. It's just a shame. Yeah, you're scared about how much impact government can have, really. What was that, Terry, about banks and why you use mortgage brokers?
Because you can't get service from banks. They don't want to see you. I mean, often you've got a problem with a bank. They say, oh, you need to go to your local branch. I say, we don't have any local branches. You close them all down. The nearest one's about an hour from where I live. And they don't want to see you anyway. They want it all to happen online. And you can't find the loan that you need that way. So mortgages are a godsend. A good one like you, who
Thank you.
knows the territory and can find the right loan that suits your purpose. I don't know how people can get a loan without the help of a good mortgage broker these days, because you're not going to get any attention or service from a bank. And what I like about your service is periodically you'll send me an update on the loans with all the current interest rates, and you've asked for discounts, succeeded with some of the loans that I've got. And that update and just keeping us up to date where things are at and whether it's possible to do better is very valuable.
Thank you. I appreciate that because, yeah, we work really hard to make that happen and do it well. But anyway, so Terry, show us the book one more time, please. Why Property Values Rise.
Yeah.
Good.
And it's available in bookstores. It's also available on Amazon and Booktopia.
Fantastic.
And, it features in the Booktopia Christmas catalogue just out, so that should give it a bit of a boost.
Congratulations for that. And also, yes, I gather you've been featured in the Australian as well. So there you go. Fantastic.
And Money Magazine.
And Money Magazine, right. Well, people, watch out for it. And there's a good Christmas gift for anyone who needs to know more about Australian property, which you should. And here's learning from the expert is the key. So thank you, Terry, for your time. We really love talking to you. And we will see you all again soon.